Hey everybody, I'm going to walk you through rolling out a slab to begin this tile project. The things that you're going to need for this assignment and for this process are your drawings of your tiles. I have my square demo here and I made a circular demo as well. You're going to need a block of clay, which is about the size of my fist, maybe slightly bigger. We're only going to make one tile at a time. Don't try to make two tiles at one time because you'll probably end up wasting clay. Your rolling pin, your wooden tool, wooden knife tool, your wooden rib, your needle tool, and your pencil. You're also going to want to find some slats that you can use for measuring out your slab. I'm going to use two rulers because I have two rulers that are the same width, or the same width. I don't expect you guys would all have those though, so another option is to use two magazines. You wouldn't want to use something as big as a book because you would want it to stay pretty thin. But your average magazine is pretty much the perfect width. Just make sure you don't grab two magazines that are very different widths. This one is much thicker than this because you want them to be about the same size. Lastly, you're going to need a place to put your tiles once you've rolled them out. And you want that to be a very flat surface that you can move and put somewhere else. I recommend grabbing a book that you're not using right now for class. I grabbed this textbook that I'm not using. And then I wrapped it in a plastic bag, partially to protect the book and partially to keep the clay from sticking. If you need help locating any of these materials or finding these supplies, please let me know and then we'll get started. Okay guys. Like I said, you're going to want to find two guidelines that are going to help you from rolling your slab out too thin. I'm using rulers. You could use two magazines, whatever you find that makes sense for you. You want to separate those two guidelines to be about 5 inches apart. We're aiming to create two 4-inch tiles, whether that's circular 4-inch in diameter or 4-inch height, 4-inch width. For a square. So we want our guidelines to be a little bit further apart than 4 because that will make sure that we have plenty of extra room to cut off uneven edges. So I'm just gonna put one edge here and then I'm gonna measure. This is the pro of using a ruler, and 5 inches is about right there. So I'm gonna line my other ruler up to be 5 inches. Then I'm going to take my roller and I'm actually going to stand up to have greater control to roll out my slab. You want to put your left hand and your right hand on the roller, and you just want to sort of start to go back and forth a few times. Your clay should be soft enough that it should press down pretty easily. Now once you've gone back 4 or 5 times, you're actually going to flip it over. Make sure your guidelines are staying in place. And then I'm going to keep rolling and flipping and rolling and flipping. You want to make sure that you get all of the edges. So the top edge and the bottom. You don't want to just roll in the center. And the reason why I'm continually flipping is that keeps my slab from sticking to the canvas. And it also just creates a more even roll. Once your slab starts to get pretty thin, I'm actually going to put my roller down to flip, and I'm going to lift the top 2 corners and flip again. Push it back in. And then you just want to make sure you've rolled the whole slab out so that at the end your roller is not really rolling on the slab anymore. It's just rolling on the guidelines. Then you're going to take your guidelines away, use one of them as a straight edge. And first you want to check your measurement. So I want right now I'm going to do my square slab. So I want a 4-inch by 4-inch slab. So once you have that measured out, you can lay your sketch down to make sure that looks right. Now don't cut yet, because first we want to get rid of all of these uneven edges. We don't want the uneven edges to be a part of our tile. So I'm just going to use my straight edge. Save your scraps, you will use them. So you'll do both sides, the bottom, and the top. Then I'm going to lay my sketch down again. Make sure it really sticks. And then it'll be very tempting to just trace your sketch, but don't do it. Use your straight edge. So put your straight edge up against the edge of your sketch and use your straight edge as your guide, because through the cutting process you might have created a little bit of an uneven edge to your drawing. All right, once I have everything traced off, I can just use my needle tool to lift up my sketch. And then I'm going to, once again with my straight edge, go along the line, and now I'm going to cut. Making sure I save each scrap. Once you've got that cut, you want to take a little bit of water in your water jar, dip your fingers in, and just very slightly smooth the edges. And then lastly, you want to take your wooden rib and just make sure your canvas marks are off of the clay on both sides. So I'll flip it over, smooth my surface, and then run along the edge with my finger. Once all of the edges are smoothed and your surface is nice and smooth, just give it a little double check. Then, very carefully, you'll pick it up and transfer it over to your book. Now, when I put it on my book, you might see that it's lifted up a little bit. You don't want it to dry like that, or else it'll dry warped. We're actually not going to get these that dry anyways, but you always want to make sure it stays flat. So just very lightly with your hand, give it a little press. If you're feeling really nervous about it, you could take a book as well and just put it right on top of it. Give it a little press down, not too hard. You don't want it to stick, but you just want to make sure that it's not going to warp. And then you'll repeat that process either with another square or a circle.